is July 28th, 2016. Today I want to talk about new developments with Sonic the Hedgehog. We finally got game announcements for next year. It is Sonic's 25th anniversary. We got a logo earlier in the year and what felt like a promise of new games to come, but it was strange that we hadn't had announcements yet if we were going to get things this year. So I think a lot of us assumed that if we were getting new Sonic games anytime soon, it wasn't going to be this year. And we have kind of the same thing that we've got going on, except for the fact that we at least had a Star Trek movie this year with Star Trek Discovery, where we kind of missed the boat and we're going to get a new TV show just after the 50th anniversary. This seems to be kind of happening with Sonic the Hedgehog, but as I always say with video games, if it's not done yet, don't rush it out. So if it's taking longer to develop than they had hoped that it was, or is this just the time that it takes, I can't be too upset that we're not going to have new Sonic games this year, and that we're not going to have our big celebratory, obligatory throwback things for Sonic the Hedgehog this year with the games anyway. We just had we just had a one-shot from the Archie comics that is kind of their salute to Sonic's past. And anyway, we've got two new games announced. I have no idea why nothing was announced at E3 and why we're just now finding out about this at San Diego, or just at last week San Diego Comic-Con. But at any rate, regardless of whatever the reason is for how long it's going to take us to get these games and how long it's taken us to even find out that they're happening, both of them look potentially promising, and both look like they definitely have kind of throwback components to them, but two very, very different games, and kind of neat to have a very traditional 2D platformer for the purists, or at least the purists in the original Sonic the Hedgehog camp, like me, who just kind of likes the early Sonic games, and I can enjoy some things about the 3D games, but I certainly much prefer 2D side-scrolling Sonic, and have been wanting more in that vein for a long time. And also, people who really like the 3D games, we're going to get one throughout next year. We're going to get one of those kind of games for each kind of Sonic player. Although I imagine there will be some 2D stuff, but made to look more contemporary in the second game, and Project Sonic 2017. We'll see if the name of that game changes. I suspect that's a working title or just a placeholder, but I guess we'll find out. Anyway, so the first game is Sonic Mania, and this is the one I primarily wanted to talk about, the one that we know most about so far. It's coming out spring of next year, and so Sega's showing us more about that game, and this is a straight-up pure throwback. It's not even like, and I keep saying that we could make a great side-scrolling platformer in this vein with Sonic the Hedgehog, but it's not even like something like Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze, where it's using modern graphics capabilities to enhance a side-scrolling experience. It's going back to the well and trying to make something look 16-bit, or in this case, look kind of 16-bit, but what a more advanced system would have done with that right after the Sega Genesis. So this is supposed to be, Sonic Mania is supposed to be what that lost Sonic game that, or not lost, but what that Sonic game that unfortunately never happened might have looked like on the Sega Saturn. And the lack of a good Sonic game has been attributed to, has been kind of one of the biggest factors attributed to the failure of the Sega Saturn over the years. And so the idea to go back to that system and try to make a game that looks like what side-scrolling would be like on that system, even though we weren't concerned anymore with 2D side-scrolling platformers at that point, I think is a really cool idea. Again, I still say eventually it might be neat to do even more blending and make it less about throwback, and just try to prove with Sonic the Hedgehog, as we have with Mario, with the new Super Mario Brothers series, and with Donkey Kong Country, that 2D side-scrolling isn't dead, and that it doesn't, and that we don't have to hinge just on nostalgia, that we can continue to push envelopes and innovate with that experience, and that's simply a kind of game that is just a genre of platforming, and that it is not necessarily outdated and outmoded. We can keep adding things to it and keep pushing the envelope of what that looks like. But this is a neat experiment, I think. And a lot of people are saying it's too bad that the name Sonic 4 was taken, because this looks much more like it deserves that title, because Sonic 4 was an attempt at using modern graphics capabilities and doing an old school Sonic game, but looking more modern. And my issue with that game simply was the controls weren't quite what I wanted, and I didn't love some of the level design. This is very much a love letter to Sega Genesis Sonic games, and then the few things we had after that were still in the same vein. So there's a teaser trailer, but then there's also 8 minutes of gameplay that I don't remember which website got to put up, but I saw that, and we get to see a couple of different levels. The first level we get to see is yet another new version of Green Hill Zone. It's really deceptive because at first it just looks like Green Hill Zone, and there's not a lot that's updated and done with the graphics. It just kind of looks like Green Hill Zone. There's some tweaks and things in like the outline of Sonic and in like power-ups you can get and stuff. It adds a bunch of stuff from Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles, but at first, until you get a ways into the level design looks exactly the same. And then all of a sudden it starts getting wonky and weird. And it's kind of fun, it's kind of neat looking, but and it's kind of neat just to see this hodgepodge of different games all thrown together from that era. But I wish it was more of a proper Sonic 4 in that it was just all brand new levels and we didn't have to rely on any of that throwback. Obviously, it's already a big nostalgia fest, but I don't really see the point in reworking old levels. I don't think you need to do that to appease people. I think the look and the feel of it, and kind of homaging and building on ideas of levels that we've had in the past would be enough. I thought the second level was way more interesting that we got to see there, which was a level that's the theme is like Hollywood movie making, and it's kind of fun because it looks like it looks like Robotnik is making a movie, and there's a lot of egg puns and things in the background, where there's a lot of commercialism, and one of the things that's advertised in a thing in the background is eggnog. I thought that was kind of funny, and it's a throwback to Casino Night Zone, but it's not exactly Casino Night Zone. And so I think that's really cool, and I'm very excited about that kind of stuff. I also thought the music in that zone was spot on, and that was the main concern I had. I wasn't sure if they would go back enough to the flavor of the score that we had in those first games, and that was so much of the appeal of those games for me, and what gave them the tone and again the flavor that they had, and why they stuck with me so much. And I would hate for it to get too far away from, and as the later games did, and of course they were a different thing, but I would hate for it to get too far away from that kind of really poppy 90s techno stuff and really jazzy stuff. And there was a lot in that music track that reminded me a lot of Knuckles Chaotix, and a bunch of stuff from more obscure things, relatively obscure things. I saw a lot of Knuckles Chaotix in that. I saw a lot of Sonic CD in there, and there was a particular sound effect that came directly from Sonic Spinball, and I'm very excited to see more of it. I just wish we weren't getting throwback levels, because I'm afraid that that's going to eat away at too much of the real estate of the game, and I'd love to see it stand on its own and really be its own piece. And but besides that aspect of it, it really looks like it might look totally like the game that we all kind of wished we had after Sonic CDs. So that's really exciting. We don't know a whole lot yet about Project Sonic 2017. It looks like it's kind of maybe going to be a direct sequel to Sonic Generations, because it has the modern Sonic and the old school looking Sonic teaming up again in we didn't get really gameplay in this trailer. It was just a teaser, kind of a cinematic teaser, and it looks post-apocalyptic, and there's a lot of destruction and mayhem, and Robotnik seems to have maybe taken over the whole universe or the whole world, and the old and new Sonic are teaming up again. So I don't know if that means we're gonna have that format again of 2D and 3D levels that are the same zones, but one's in 2D and one's in 3D, or we're gonna find some way to mesh those together. Who knows? I think it's kind of interesting that we're doing a game that might be really throwbacky again on top of Sonic Mania. The only thing Sega is really saying about it beyond that teaser that I've read anyway is it's supposed to be a much more polished 3D Sonic game than we've had recently, whatever that means. So we'll see. But I still say, and some people don't agree with me on this, I still say that we had that nice sweet spot there for a minute with Sonic Generations, which was pretty cool, and Sonic Colors, which I liked a lot. And then lately, I haven't been as impressed, at least with the ones that I have looked at and dabbled in. Although I need to play Sonic Lost World because I haven't checked that out yet, but I've heard mixed things on it. But I still feel like Sonic is having a little bit of an identity crisis. They still are trying really hard to appeal to both kinds of Sonic players, and I honestly think that if Sonic Mania is really successful, I think they've been trepidatious about making a game like that because they just didn't know if there were enough of us that would play that, if it was just going to be a throwback thing, or if people that even didn't play the original Sonic games would look at that and find it appealing. I'd like to think that they would. I'd like to think that is, even though it is 16-bit and throwback, that the gameplay is just so good. It's just so much fun that it might still appeal to, and I mean, that seems to have worked okay with Donkey Kong Country. I'd like to think that might appeal to gamers now that just like to play adventure games, and that it's a universal enough thing and a timeless enough thing that you can keep making those. And I just never get tired of the look and the feel of those games. I don't know why I can't have 15 or 20 of them. It's not just a matter of recapturing my nostalgia. I wish I had more of what I had then, because I don't feel like it's ever gotten old, and I'd like to play more of them. But there are a lot of people that really like the 3D stuff too, and I feel like there's room for both. And I think you could put out both, kind of like we've been doing with 2D and 3D Mario, and not feel like you had an identity crisis. It's where we're trying to figure out how to blend them. And we did that okay with Sonic Generations, but I don't know if that's what people would want moving forward, is like the main way we did those games. I just think you can kind of do both kinds and just have really good 3D and really good 2D, and not worry too much about making a game that makes everybody happy. And I think maybe that's what we're doing now, but I don't know what the old school Sonic component of Project Sonic 2017 is gonna end up looking like. So I suppose we'll see. I am very excited about Sonic Mania, and the main thing watching that for me was just it made me want to go back and play all those games again. Thanks a lot for watching, folks. Sure appreciate it. Love to hear your comments or read your comments and hear what you think about these upcoming Sonic games. And in the meantime, I'm Captain Logan, and this concludes today's Captain's Log.